About the problem to the death of Honorable Nebanda. Today, police announced that they had arrested Adam Kalunji, the said former boyfriend of Honorable Serena Nebanda. He was apparently arrested by Kenyan police in Mombasa and sent back to Kampala and is now in Chirika, where the special investigations unit is located. We'll look at that and see exactly what it means for this inquiry. The standoff over recalling Parliament, the same issue. Legislators were supposed to hand in the signatures today with a request for the House to be recalled. We have not had news about they having delivered that petition. We'll talk about that. We'll also try to examine the separation of powers. What exactly does it mean, the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary? How do they operate? And talk about the President's 2013 Development Master Plan. Shall we immediately go into the promised land before the year ends? We'll talk about that. Our guest tonight, Honorable Lydia Wanyoto, two-time Ugandan representative for the East African Parliament. You're most welcome, Honorable Lydia Wanyoto.
Good evening, listeners. Abaiza John.
We're also joined by Mr. Asuman, Basalirwa, President of the Justice Forum Party. You're most welcome, Mr. Basalirwa.
Thank you very much. Good evening to all our listeners and Happy New Year to everybody.
We're joined as well by Mr. Rwomushana. He's a former head of intelligence at political intelligence at State House. You're most welcome, Mr. Rwomushana.
The Almighty God is great.
And Mr. Nichols Opiyo, a legal consultant at AKIJUL, also a commentator on political and social affairs. You're most welcome, Mr. Nichols Opiyo.
Well, thank you very much, Edmond. Good evening to my fellow panelists and good evening to all the listeners. Happy New Year to you all.
Well, Nicholas, are we getting closer to knowing who or what killed Nebanda with this arrest of Adam Kalunji?
Well, far from it. I think that we are very far from knowing the real truth. I think that the arrest of the boyfriend just throws a spanner to the works, because if you recall very carefully how events unfolded, immediately Nebanda died on a Friday. On Monday, there was a carefully constructed series of events by the police, calculated as showing that she died out of drugs. Police had a huge swoop in the areas of Kantanga, Kabalagala to arrest alleged drug dealers and try to connect this story to drug sale, drug usage and all this. It would be interesting to hear what the boyfriend has to say. You never know, because I think that what he's going to say might just send us back to square one. I think that in my view, we've got to be very careful and wait and hear what he says. But also, secondly, I think that the government has made it clear that they've asked for an inquest. The Chief Justice, I don't know why he's taking time to make up his mind on who should be the coroner. Should have by now appointed somebody to do an inquest. Once an inquest is open, it will be interesting to see how the parliamentary process, the inquest and the police investigations, what results they'll come up with. Because I think that this whole process has been so muddled up and nobody seems to know the truth. Even the police that are investigating don't seem to have all the clues that they should be following. Some people are hell-bent on saying some clues shouldn't be followed. Some people are hell-bent on saying, if you actually follow this clue, we shall arrest you. So I think that the whole truth is yet to come out, and you're very far from finding the truth. In my view, I think the real truth of Nebanda's death actually may not be found in the near future.
What do you mean?
Well, you followed the events after her death. There's been so much debate. It's been so much. I mean, it's not now about Nebanda's death. Rather, it's now the politics of it. It's. I mean, God rest her soul in peace. Because I think that we've almost forgotten about the cause of death. And how to mourn somebody who has died, and just turn this into a political play. Because I think that will take us away from the truth, and perhaps because of what I think is the vested interest of the president in this matter, because the president has been so involved. He almost behaved like he was an IGP at one point, making press statements about the process, telling police what to investigate, what not to investigate. That will make us not get the truth. The real truth of this lady's death may come years after President Museveni is gone.
Honorable Wanyoto, what's your view there? Is there other missing puzzles, jigsaw puzzles that we need to put together?
No, as far as the police in Uganda is concerned, the prime suspect that was the missing chip in the puzzle was this Adam Kalunji, whom they've all told us was the boyfriend, and whom they've alleged that is one that was one of those that dropped the late Serena at that clinic. And therefore, like Nicholas has said, maybe as far as police of Uganda is concerned, their construction of their story is progressive as of today, because they've been telling us they are pursuing the prime suspect and they've got him. So as far as police is concerned in Uganda, there's huge progress in that construction of that story, to find out what happened and to tell us the story. Now on the issue of the inquest, I think this was a resolution of Parliament, but also that was one of the areas where there is meeting of mind, both from the Executive and Parliament. They all asked for an inquest, and Chief Justice has already pronounced himself that he's going to ensure that a coroner is appointed and the process starts. I think that what is happening at the police of Uganda level, but also whatever it is that Parliament has, are all raw materials for the inquest process. They should be able to feed into the inquest process so they are able to again reconstruct a new thinking beyond, that it will be plus the level of investigation that the inquest can bring. And unfortunately, the Nebanda family and the rest of them may never, the pain and the sour bit of the distortion that happened, they may never come to recover from it. But this is an important process that I believe should go on and come to a conclusive end, because it gives us lessons. And I've said this before, it gives us lessons to be able to manage the future better. Because if you ask me, I wish we had an inquest like on day one.
Yes.
I can't imagine if there was an inquest on day one proposal, would all have been able to be somewhere by now without a lot of everybody meddling. I mean, you have no idea how many people have knowledge, even claimed expertise, even, some people have been put on the weighing scale how much they have grieved over the loss of Honorable Nebanda. You have checked whether you have grieved more than the other, and it has been terrible. And therefore, for me, I thought that we missed an opportunity, colleagues. If at the time when we should have put an inquest almost immediately, this death began having such questions. Like on day 2, the moment Parliament sent Nebanda's casket out of the house, the next day there should have been an appointment, because then there was that feeling that there's lost faith in anybody else who was doing the investigation. So we should have had on Wednesday of that week an inquest in place, so that we put back to, first of all, trust, number 2, toning down the emotions, number 3, giving hope, and number 4, knowing that there is a way out when such situations happen. So I hope that even now hope is not lost for the future. But for Selina, we have to go around it to support the family to grieve. Now, on the issue of the president, because of the panic and the shock and the reaction and everybody, the overzealousness of so many people about this death, the president ended up also being attacked. You know very well that I was in Entebbe at the home of the family of the Nebanda. He was attacked by some people personally.
Yes. And
therefore, well, being a head of state, you can Nicholas, yes, you can question him for being so personally involved in this, but also at a human nature level, I've been wondering how much he could have kept quiet, because I was also taken aback. I mean, people are like, now, can you explain this death? You're the head of state. And he had to come out, because up to that point, actually, he had not come out to say anything. It was
he had 3 public appearances and he said nothing in those 3 public.
That was on Sunday. He had not said anything about it until those public challenges, personal challenges to him, to say he has a hand in this, he should explain. And naturally, now for me, in all this, I never talked at the end of the funeral. That was part of that process. But now I've been looking through as one of the observers to say, look, there were very hyper emotions in this death. There were shocks, but also people were pinpointed to say, is it Rwomushana? Is it? So I mean, and some of the points that you get, you know, it's like, it's not me, because people came up saying it's not me, and it was, I thought it was tough for them. And please understand where they are coming from. Yeah, it was really. And I just want to ask that please understand them when they come and say it's not me, because really it was like it was put square to them. It's you, and they were not even beating about the bush. They were saying you've killed her, because the truth is that this was not a natural death.
Right. Yeah. Charles Rwomushana, which other leads do we need to get to the bottom of this? We thought with Adam Kalunji arrested, everything had fallen in place.
See, the battle, in my own opinion, the way I observe, is to suppress the truth, the emergency of the truth. If you read, if you see on the screen.
Yes.
But I have a few questions to ask as a lay person.
Ask those questions.
From
you know, a lay person in Greek is actually called idiotes.
From Kahokonya Kajengere Kongere. Is being a boyfriend a crime? If indeed he was a boyfriend of
boyfriend
is it a crime? Two, if she died of drugs, because that's almost established according to the versions we are getting, that it's drugs. Then why do you have to arrest the boyfriend? Was he the supplier of those drugs? Because you see, even if it is your version, they are the ones who are informing public. They need to be responsible. There is no way you can go on Wokede Agatari Konfufu if you are not cleared.
What do you mean?
What they were relaying on Wokede Agatari Konfufu is someone who is also a former boyfriend, saying, you know, she took drugs, she was taking these drugs to reduce her weight. You take cocaine, a person who has gone through Makerere University, you take cocaine, because in any case it's not any idiot in the streets that can access cocaine. These are not simple drugs to get. And you think that whenever would take cocaine to reduce weight, and then you allow that kind of person, well, I shouldn't also use those heavy words, both Uncle used it, on the screen to say that it was my girlfriend and to reduce weight. Really?
You don't believe that?
No, but they did. This is what I'm trying to say. Kav Shenga's screen.
Yes.
The bucket.
Yes.
I know that's bucket, one no bucket, the two. Now, and it is the same Kav Shenga's group that ran the past story. People are saying, the way she has died, the things seem not. Kav Shenga was one of the first people to hear about it. And you see, if
the IGP.
If I was doing investigation, the first person to arrest
is Kav
Shenga, not Karun. Because I needed to know, and I have followed it, I needed to know how New Vision. I would want to know how New Vision and the Monitor wrote the same story of the drugs in the same terms, because it's rare.
That's true.
Monitor cannot run the same story of the New Vision in the same terms without doing some bit of investigation. But somebody pushed that story. Now, the story moves from Kav Shenga to the journalist and then into the paper. Ordinarily, it's supposed to come from the bureau. So where did he get this story of the drugs?
15 minutes.
15 minutes before the death, after the death, before they have even slit the stomach.
You know, it's a media house, for God's sake.
But how did he know? Was she smelling drugs? Were drugs sprinkled around? Did they find them in her pajamas?
No.
How did he know? And that would be very interesting. Now, but follow the killing of sheikhs.
Yes.
Yeah, because the MP, their line has begun. They should remember there were also other lines. There were lines that how many crashed? More than 11.
What was that?
In the chest and on the heart.
The sheikhs, the Muslim sheikhs.
The Muslim sheikhs.
Let's get it clear. 11 sheikhs were killed in a row. It was a pattern for a season.
Then the businessmen.
Then the business, yes, go on.
Now, so the line has begun.
Let's move forward.
But before you go, look at Brang, the burning of Brang. And then you have 3 people.
Go on, 3 people?
Yeah, you have 3 people. All of them enter coma. You see, yeah, you know, it's very interesting. I'm talking about those who are burnt when they burnt Barang,
Yes.
the gate,
Yes.
there was, I think, a captain or major and some other 3 people. Then they arranged the bad woman.
Yes.
The alleged bad woman who is burnt with them is burnt to ash.
Yes.
But the other ones are not burnt to ash, but the same fire, same impact. Now, and they enter coma. They are not conscious, they are not dead, but they enter coma and they remain coma and all of them die.
Vegetative.
That's very interesting knowledge. Now, so we now need to construct the time when this woman died. Because when does she leave Munyonyo? And when does her body land? And when does her dead body land at the hospital? At this Mukwaya what? They don't go to international, the Canberra international, this hospital in
IHK, international.
they don't go there. They don't go to Chiburi, sorry. But do you know even where that hospital is? Mukwaya something.
No.
Do you know it?
I only heard it about
using tourist maps.
even the
They are using tourist maps. So they think of that one. Now we need to calculate the time it took. And then remember there is intravenous. 3 bottles.
IV, yes.
Minimum of that bottle is 40 minutes. Ask doctors. That's high speed, supersonic.
Yes.
Now if they are 3.5 hours, you're remaining with a balance of 1.5 hours. Take away the time that they used to convince this nurse. Not taking the patient to the nurse, taking the nurse there.
The patient.
Take away that time. Take away the time of the jam. You fit in 30 minutes.
What's your theory?
There is a lot of science. And we need to have the result. Sort it out.
Asuman, Basalirwa, give us your own theory. The justice is taking long to appoint a coroner. Why is that? Why should it take him such a long? What kind of person who can be appointed a coroner?
Well, you know, who is a coroner? A coroner person who manages an inquest.
What qualifications does they have to have?
Well, according to the structure of the Inquest Act, you are really talking about somebody with a legal background, ideally. But in my view, I don't think really an inquest would serve the purpose, considering the conclusions of the 3 medical doctors, Dr. Baryomunsi, Dr. Lyomoki, and Dr. Medad Bitekirezo. Because even a coroner must base his or her findings on scientific premises. And according to these 3 doctors, whose qualifications I don't doubt, there is nothing much we are likely to achieve. But for purposes of public relations, and maybe for purposes of mollifying the emotions of the people, we could proceed and go ahead with the inquest. But about the arrest, Charles has raised very important questions. I am not a doctor, but I also want to ask, how much drugs do you have to take to occasion a death?
In 30 minutes.
How much?
Yes.
Because we have been told they were drugs.
Yes.
Okay? How much do you have to take? Because that is not clear. Okay? So somebody really has to come out, because I know on a daily basis people take these drugs. Some are even celebrities in this country. How come they have not died? So really somebody should come and explain.
Except if you are saying it was a first time.
And even if it is the first time, what quantities are you talking about? Number 2, if it is true that Karungi was a boyfriend of Nebanda,
Yes.
then her being arrested and her being a prime suspect is incompatible with the status of boyfriend-girlfriend relationship.
What do you mean?
It's incompatible. Why would, for example, Karungi administer high doses of drugs to kill the girlfriend?
Well, they have to explain.
You see,
let him explain. He was close to this lady. Let him explain. He has to explain.
Yes, and you see why the plot was lost. General Kaihura himself came out and said,
You mean there's a plot?
no, General Kaihura said that he was wondering why Kalungi would run away. After all, he took the right step of taking a sick person
To the hospital.
That tells you, in terms of mens rea, that he could not have had any intentions.
Mens rea, what's that?
The mental element to the intention to kill.
Yes.
Should not have had the intention to kill the girlfriend. the action of taking her
It's not compatible
is not compatible
with
the intention to kill.
Yes.
So those are questions that I think are likely to come out. In my view, what is probably likely to come out very strongly as a criminal lawyer is maybe the fact that he's a drug dealer. Perhaps they are likely to sustain that.
licenses.
No. If they can prove that he was illegally dealing in these prohibited drugs,
That's different.
perhaps they are likely to sustain a charge. But in terms of murder, being an accomplice, or related things, I am telling you, we are actually wasting time. So in my view, the family has already made the conclusions.
Yes.
I and Lydia here were in Bunyo. We attended the burial. For purposes of protecting the integrity of the radio station, because I know you are really, your license is at stake.
What do you mean at stake?
No, somebody can close.
This is a free country, man.
Now, if you permit me, I will tell you. Nebanda's mother said 4 people are responsible for Nebanda's death. And he mentioned General Kaihura, he mentioned General Museveni, he mentioned Kabushenga, he mentioned Brigadier Muhoozi. And that is on record. That is on record. That's what the mother said.
Well, somebody mentioned the same things.
Exactly, because the mother spoke for about an hour. So, giving a chronology, and the mother was asking how Kabushenga came to know the information, and the mother revealed it to us that she even asked Museveni.
How did you know?
She asked President Museveni to tell her how Brigadier Muhoozi came to know about the death of the daughter in so short a time. Okay, in so short a time. So this whole scenario has a lot of questions that are yet to be resolved. The Honorable Sam Chanjo, much in the West MP, when he was speaking in Parliament, he gave various scenarios and he said
9 of them.
yes.
Well, that's a philosophy, it's a theory.
Exactly.
It might be right, it might not be right.
Exactly. But he said a very important statement that we are at the stage of poisoning.
That's theory.
And he said, no, it is not theory because he's a victim. You know what? Somebody speaking from experience is different from you who has never actually experienced it. And he said, in all repressive regimes, you have a level, you reach a level where people are going to arrive at a stage of being poisoned. And now it is actually real. And there are already consequences.
That is a theory.
Yes, it is a theory, but it is real. Okay? It is real. And
I think we are also falling into the same trap with the other people. If we say it's poison,
yes,
or drugs, what I think is established is that the death was unnatural. Now, and when you read Wanyoto's statements, there was no corrosive substance that she took orally. In other words, they found all the organs from the tongue.
and there was no injection because there was no.
No, that's why I have to go. What did they use? Because you can have, you know,
sources. You could
and use like how you use doom.
Inhalation.
She could have been doomed. Yeah, because you see, the others are literally, because my interest is how to establish the cause of death.
All right.
That would create that kind of impact in less than an hour.
Let's leave Edmond.
3 hours.
So, like, we still want to know why you think the Chief Justice hasn't appointed a coroner yet. It's taken a long time.
Well, I don't know. The head of an inquest really is one person, but when you read the Inquest Act, they can co-opt as many people as possible for purposes of establishing.
That comes later, but there has to be a main man. Or woman.
Yes, you are asking why. Really, I think that is for the Chief Justice to answer. I am not very sure that the Chief Justice, the last time information came to the public was that the CJ had received the information and he was yet to act.
Why would it take such a long time?
Chief Justice,
First,
you must admit, in the history of our country, we've never had the Inquest Act being brought into play to investigate a death in a very long time.
It's never happened. We've never had an inquest
any
in our modern history.
An inquest has been ordered into a death. You know, I've never had it. So everybody is still trying to, grapple with how it works, who should be qualified. And over this Christmas break, I think the Chief Justice must have actually gone back to read the Inquest Act himself and the rules.
But he must have spoken to some people
Because
by now. He's a man who works.
The Law Society put out a statement in which they said an inquest by an independent person who is reputable and acceptable to all the parties involved. Those are very high standards. Perhaps you're looking for that person. Perhaps you haven't found a person who is acceptable to all, who is reputable, and who is an expert in what he's supposed to do.
Well, but Chairman Mr. Odoki chaired the Constitutional Commission. He's a forthright man.
A Constitutional Commission is different from an inquest. An inquest.
Well, he knows some many people who would have the qualification.
That law is a 1968 law, to the best of my recollection. That's when the inquest.
But there was an inquest in Diana.
Yes, I know. I'm saying, in fact, in UK, inquests are very common because most of their deaths are really very mysterious, especially and in the UK or the developed world for that matter. It doesn't matter who you are. A peasant like me from Bujiri, what I find, okay, an inquest can be undertaken. But I think, finally, on my part on this issue,
yes,
what the government needs to do, because you see, we really need to look at the bigger picture. You know, this accusation that government did this, that government was responsible for this, it's not an accusation out of the ordinary. The primary responsibility of protecting lives and property lies with government, okay? If somebody's life is taken, the primary person, the primary institution is actually government to explain. So what we need to be doing now is for government to give assurance to the country that one, there are no criminal gangs taking away people's lives, either through drugs or butayimba. That assurance must be there. Or that a criminal gang exists, but government is making efforts to you know, in Mexico, one of the pleas they have made in Mexico, by the way,
yes,
is to request Sir Alex Ferguson, request Sir Alex Ferguson to continuously give Xavier Hernandez Chicharito opportunity to play for Manchester, because each time Chicharito plays for Manchester, the gangs are glued on TV and crime is minimized.
We have to go for a break. This is Spectrum Radio and we'll be back to stay tuned.
Discover the new invigorating taste of Red Vodka Lemon. Red Vodka Lemon. Reinvent the night. Not for sale to persons under 18.
Welcome to the MTN Service Center, sir. How can I help you?
We are here to buy MTN SIM cards.
Okay.
Meet my wife and my daughter and my son. This is my father, my mother and my cousin Sylvia.
Oh, wow, that's great.
Hey, I need even for my auntie piece. Hey, come across auntie piece. Behind her is my mechanic and my newspaper vendor and my boss and the pastor.
Okay, sir.
This Christmas, buy an MTN SIM card to win free airtime for a year. Dial star 188 hash to win. 250 winners will immediately be notified on SMS each day. Win free airtime for a year with MTN this Christmas. Terms and conditions apply.
And of course there is my brother, my electrician, my bramba, and my baba's best friend's girlfriend.
MTN. Everywhere you go.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.
Welcome back on Spectrum. Tonight we're reviewing the week. We've spoken about the arrest of Adam Kalunji, former boyfriend alleged of Honorable Serena Nebanda, who died mysteriously on December the 14th. We're going to be talking about something else. Our guest tonight, Honorable Lydia Wanyoto, two-time representative of the East African Parliament, Mr. Asuman Basalirwa, President of the Justice Forum Party, Mr. Charles Rwomushana, former head of political intelligence and state house, Mr. Nichols Opiyo, legal consultant at AKIJUL, also a commentator on political and social affairs. We have two former guild presidents in the studio, Asuman and Charles.
Only non-lawyer on the panel.
Well, maybe Uganda's constitution too.
Three lawyers, two former Makerere University Guild presidents. Charles Rwomushana, the standoff over recalling of Parliament, with the President has also called the NRM caucus. Parliament is expected to be recalled, we think. With the two programs clashing, what is going to happen, do you think?
No, we in my own opinion, I don't think we have had Parliament. What we have is the National Resistance Council expanded. you can come with your colors, but you see certain things are maintained. Those representing the army. I think the only thing that was phased out is the historicals. Now, so if you are talking about the NRM as a liberation organization, because it's not shedding off all those very fast. It has only been adopting. You need elections, yes, we can hold elections. And initially, no party, but when parties are allowed to act at certain level, not beyond offices, it goes individual, and then later on you go pluralistic. But when you even go pluralistic, it's between themselves, because they are all members of the high command of the NRA. That is the best group and Muchamuntu, that's NRA. Then you have them 7.
The NRA is the former the UPDF. For
no, it's the same NRA.
Well, for some people might know, UPDF was formerly called the NRA.
Yeah, so and that's where I am. If you want to look at the behavior, what is going on now, look at it from that point of view. That they are the same people. There are people who have entered the train. This includes the train or bus. This includes Karaga and the others. So they needed to be reminded on the code of conduct. How does NRM as a liberation organization operate? How it operates is that the chairman of the high command, and therefore the chairman of the NRM is supreme.
Is the boss.
He's supreme because he's the one who is steering the train. He has the vision. He knows where it's going, and that's why it captured the power. Now, because these ones are going to do, they jump up and down.
Not in there.
They jump up and down from discourse, and they come to confront power. So what happened? Yeah, but he said it. Remember about the
and the Marwa group.
Of course, others are always on the Marwa. They jump up and down from discourse. If the commander in chief has said you are not going to reconvene parliament, there is something he has seen. You see, because he is the custodian of intelligence. Fine, you have frost an MP, you mourn. You are allowed to mourn. You can mourn in any fashion you so wish. But if he says, no, it's not in the interest of having parliament reconvened, don't tell us about the constitution. Because NRM is supreme to the constitution. The constitution is subordinate to NRM. NRM is order. I was in the CA when we made this constitution. There are a number of things that bypass. There are a number of things that bypass the constitution making process. One of them is the restoration of traditional institutions. Yeah, it was decided by the NRA High Command.
Well, that was before the constitution.
I'm saying it was decided there and we adopted it.
Yes.
The second one was decentralization versus federalism. It was decided before I went to the CA, and it's a chapter. So there are a number of things that were decided before we went into the constitution making process, and we had to do what? We had to adopt them. What I'm telling you, and what I would like to tell my brother and others to know of our age, is that NRM is older than the constitution.
And so?
The constitution, as an investor, must conform to the challenges of the time. But if
in case of
if it is going to be a tool that is going to be used to bring down NRM, it's a paper and it can go where other papers go.
Where do other papers go?
They are either burnt or the rubbish heap.
Honorable Lydia Wanyoto, this constitution that we admire so much, they respect us for having it. Is it a solid document, or is it, like Charles Rwomushana says, shelvable?
I think I had to make one clarification of the time frames in Parliament and what's happening. Yes, the NRM Parliamentary Caucus has called for a retreat to begin on 11th. This has been their long-standing program, so it has nothing to do with the recall. I think I would like to make it clear so that people do not think that it has been called to preempt. It has not been. But this program, the preparation began way before Parliament adjourned, and you remember that Selina died just a day before, on a Friday, but that's the day they adjourned Parliament. We have to be factual sometimes, to be fair. What has been
factual most times.
But that having said that,
lead to the truth. Go on.
Yeah, but sorry, I want us to say that Parliament is going to, the NRM caucus is going to preempt. The president is calling a retreat because there is a recall to defeat the recall. I think that's not right.
Okay, let's look at now the
the realism.
Don't be impatient with me, because I have to make clarification there, because it's also fair to be straight. No, because I mean, don't know, unless you want to challenge this knowledge. It's a fact.
We will accept it.
But also, the recall of Parliament is a constitutional mandate, even in the rules of procedure. If there is anything that they think is of national importance, it's not even in the rules. It's just the issue of you don't even have to put the justification in the rules. The justification is the numbers. You have 125 signatures.
Automatic.
That's it. So therefore, like Basalirwa has said earlier, the politics of this is the law plus. And then I come to what Charles is saying. Yes, we have the law in Uganda, we have the constitution, but what I also keep saying is that laws help us and give us mandates, but what is bigger than laws are our values, our leadership credentials, our integrity tests, our leadership, lenses that the laws only support us. And therefore, whether Charles is calling the constitution a piece of paper or not says a lot about our community. So for me, I would like to see the rule of law, because we cannot govern ourselves without some guiding principles.
Even the
there are people that must stick to the rule of law so that we are able to survive because of our history, where we have come from. And that does not mean that we didn't have laws before, but it says so much about people that forget that for us that there's enough space for every Ugandan to play a role, and that we need this law to protect us so that we are able to have space for everybody to play a role. And that's why the struggle is, Edmond, until we appreciate that laws are there to give us rules and regulations to respect ourselves, to have our standards set, but the most important is to do politics. I mean, we need to know that this ego thing must be dealt with. We need to learn that leadership is about giving, not taking away. Leadership is about negotiating and giving, not taking away all the time.
On the power.
It's very, very, on anything, including power, on anything, including power. What is power anyway?
Nicholas.
Edmond, the point that I want to make, you can dismiss Charles as being outrageous, as being, but that's the mindset with which people who are in government work, especially those historicals.
Go on.
It is the mindset with which they work. And that explains to me what I've mentioned on this radio session before, and I can repeat it now, of a deep, dark state that cares less about your constitution, cares less about the rule of law. A deep, dark state. Whatever they want, they will get it, no matter what the law provides. That's the mindset that Charles is defining. Is defining. That's true. I mean, I can give you endless examples. But the point that I think is more important is what the Honorable Lydia has just said, that we've got to move away from that deep, dark state mentality, that village bush life mentality, to a modern democratic state run on the basis of rule of law. Period. There's just no shortcut about it. If you're stuck in that mentality,
the bush mentality.
Can I ask you? If you have got a group of people who are using Parliament to malign the national resistance movement as murderers, because it's
how do
you deal with them? That's why you see the Kabaka of Uganda had a constitutional right as a citizen, as an individual, to go to Kayunga. Forget about being the head of the monarch. Could you go there? Why couldn't the constitution take
Let me just make the point. That's the point I think we must graduate from and begin to follow the rule of law. But secondly, underlining all this standoff between, I've been looking at pictures of President Museveni ever since we discovered oil, ever since all this came about.
Yes.
He's an annoyed man.
After all,
he's completely lost it.
What do you mean?
He's calling guys idiots, buffoons, despisable, and all sorts of things. That speaks to a conversation in his mind. Because for a long time, President Museveni has made tremendous sacrifice for this country. But everywhere he turns, he doesn't hear praises. He hears condemnation. Even for things that he's done like UPE, people now don't care about access, they care about quality. So he's been asked, what have you done? It's about legacy. And that's why the president has just gone amok. He's just calling people names and insulting everybody else.
Well, it's a text on
he spoke to people from Buchalega, says nonsense, I can't take nonsense, no jokes. He's getting tougher. It speaks to me of a person waiting for the oil money to try and leave a legacy. It's a legacy thing to me.
It takes only a dead fly to make a bottle of perfume to sing. Certain book says. The Bible, actually.
Why do you quote the Bible to a Muslim?
Well, to all of us, go on.
Well, I mean, I'm no stranger to the Bible. I did CRE, I read the Bible, I got an A in CRE.
And you go to church when you need to go to church?
Yeah, I go to church very frequently. But I don't want us to dismiss the submission of Charles.
Go on.
Charles who? Rwomushana.
Yes.
From Rukungiri.
He even mentioned some village. Is it?
Go on.
Yes, from some village where people are dying of jiggers. In fact, Charles is being realistic, because this whole idea of constitutionalism was brought by President Museveni as a PR gimmick. Museveni is not a believer in constitutionalism. He's not. That's why he told you last time, I think he was addressing you people, the media, that this parliament which we brought to carry out oversight,
it was not there in the bush.
It's just not there. It is the same argument he raised one time. I think it was in when court pronounced that the movement at that time was a political party, not an organization. And he said, if there was no movement, where would these judges be? Okay? He came on TV and was beaten. So I think what we need to be doing,
two heads.
what we need to be doing is just for all stakeholders to impose or to advocate
to assist the president,
imbibe a culture of constitutionalism. As we talk now, what the president wants now is to deflate questions when he's in the UN, African Union, East African Community. He does not want to confront these problems, these questions, because wherever he would go, they would ask him, why don't you have a parliament? Why don't you have this? It just intended to deflate questions. It's the same argument he raised, you recall, about opening up political space.
Yes.
He said, I was tired. Each time I got Europe, they would ask me. Okay? So, President Museveni is not a constitutionalist. But, you see, but, unfortunately, he's living in an era of constitutionalism. So, unfortunately, he has found himself in our time. He should have been in the previous century. That's where he could afford to probably talk about having no constitution.
Let's move
now,
forward.
The moment I would think that the president, as of now, would be so delighted that the MPs are taking a constitutional path to achieve a legitimate aim.
Yes.
That should really make the president
happy.
Who was the nurse who nursed this process happy. Otherwise, if they had taken the other route of saying Edmond is my enemy, let me hit him up, or Rwomushana is my enemy, let me hit him up, that would really be dangerous. So I think, as a country, for us as Ugandans, when we see honorable MPs invoking a mandate provided for in the constitution, we really get happy. Right. On the contrary, the president has not invoked, save for the NRM revolutionary shenanigans that Rwomushana is evoking. Okay? Yes, those revolutionary shenanigans. Save for those shenanigans, the president cannot in any way quote any provision of the law to justify the not recalling of
let me give you this information. Just for you to ponder, to think about. You have 20 members of parliament representing the military. 10. Now, 10, those are 10 constituencies. Now we have a district as a constituency. We have some districts that are now counties. So you are now having one institution in the military equivalent to 10 districts, the population of 10 districts in representation. And look at the organ that selects them, the way it operates. So it shows you that he directly has control, the fusion between him and that institution, but via the NRA High Command, has that kind of influence. Now, secondary, if the institution of parliament is going to be used to destabilize the country, the stability of the country, and the stability of the country. Because you see, Yasina have treated Gaddafi.
Oh, let's
yes,
move forward.
Yasina have treated Gaddafi. When you're hiding in a mosque, when you're hiding in the parliament, you will be found. And if he hits you, initially preemptive action, I think it's just fine. Let them go there and you see.
Edmond, let me summarize this. In fact, very soon, you are going to begin hearing stories of a terrorist entering into Uganda, targeting parliament, and PGB surrounding parliament.
What do you mean?
I mean,
What do you prophesy?
just to fit into the thesis of Charles.
Let's move
that
on.
you confirm and see.
Let's move
That
on.
is going to happen. That parliament will be besieged.
Nichols
Opiyo, reports of terrorism.
Nichols Opiyo, let's try to understand the doctrine of separation of powers. What exactly is it?
Well, you know, the classical thinking about separation of powers, as espoused by Montesquieu, was that organs of the state were completely separate and work independently. But as we now know, over the years, that has been whittled down a bit. You have a near overlap of powers between institutions, either by way of functions or by way of administration. So it's no longer a classical separation of powers. You can't have it where you have a separate parliament completely independent and detached from the executive, or a completely independent judiciary from the executive. So it's more of an overlap, and that's what the Charleses did when they were crafting our constitution, or they actually borrowed from the Docky report, is to have a constitution that has a fairly overlapping system, but also one that is able to provide checks and balances in more ways than a fused system would do. And that's exactly what we have in Uganda. And so what you have is, say for example, 1/3 of parliament is actually part of the executive. You know, you have
70 ministers plus 70 plus ministers.
70 plus ministers who not only take active part in debates in parliament, influence decisions at parliament, but also they are the originators of policies and laws. Most of the laws that actually come from cabinet. So you have a system that is more of a fused system, but that is able to provide checks and balances. And in doing so, you then have specific functions to encourage checks and balances between the executive and the legislature. You have a public accounts committee that worldwide is supposed to be held by the opposition to be able to check on the excess of the executive, but also see how they spend our monies, you know, and actually do our work. So you have those systems in place. That's what we have in Uganda. Now, what you do have is, in my view, a lack of understanding of the clear functions of parliament and the clear functions of the executive, and therefore then you have this standoff, this kind of standoff. I think people who are in government don't seem to understand how parliament should work, and even people in parliament don't seem to know the remit of their powers and what they should do, and therefore rush to pass resolutions that are in vain.
Very briefly, do you think there's a clash right now? Would you say there is a clash?
What I think is that there is not a clash as such. I think what is being portrayed out in the media is rather dramatized. It's just a lack of understanding of functions. And when we get to a point where we understand what functions Parliament should do, and you see what happens.
But then President Museveni says, let's investigate the Speaker. Those are three big boys. Well, to use the word.
This is the matter, and this is the point that I made. This is the point that I made. The President had no business interfering in investigations. In fact, if he was a suspect, as one of the leaders said, that people were attacking him, he actually should have said, let the police investigate. If I am involved, if the government is involved, the police will investigate and come up with a result. Now, if you
that, but the question is, you are all asking, even the public, that why did he say it? Because he's been emphasizing the role of the police. Now, the issue, I'm sorry to come in, but the issue is that it's not an issue of the institutions investigating. There is the perception in the public of trust, and that's what we must deal with.
Okay. The bigger trust is not to scatter police efforts, but rather to reaffirm the fact that it's going to be investigated. Because once you begin to say nobody should even suggest that government was involved, you're in effect eliminating a possibility of investigation being done, and that's where the suspicion then comes in. And put that alongside other events, his outrage at Parliament being recalled to discuss this matter.
Yes.
That points to
let's move on. Let's leave the color.
Unusual.
Maybe just before we go, let's talk about the presence.
Yeah, but there's a difference. We must also understand what has been going on of differentiating between individual responsibilities and attacks of individual personalities vis-a-vis institutions. I think that's something they also have to work around, because you've been hearing this.
Right.
Did you do this as an institution or as an individual?
Did Speaker Kadaga act as an individual?
So there are some of the there are some of the questions.
You are a legislator.
Yeah, that's the question. And for me, if you had been if the allegations were like government, maybe then we say okay, police is part of government. But then they said President Museveni. Therefore, for me, I think that we should not really push him so much why he came out, because it was personal now.
All right.
It was no longer about and that really come out. That's not a very simple matter. Even in our own African setting,
all right,
it's not something you can just wish away.
Okay. Yeah. Let's talk about his speech 2013. Do you have hope we shall leap forward? The economy is already doing well. In the first 3 quarters of the last calendar year, grown by 5.2%. Shall we see heaven on earth?
The one thing that I'm happy to talk about now, and maybe I may sound cynical, but the reality is the vibrancy of Ugandans. There is nothing than living in a community that people are so detached from what's going on. People are quiet. People are not feeling any pinch. I like what is going on, because you hear voices now, and we should be more cautious and careful about those who are quiet. Because when you hear people speaking out with a lot of emotions, to even bordering risks, and fear, then you realize that actually we will get there. So me, I see hope. You asked about the issue of hope and the future of Uganda. There's going to be hope, because when you are put under pressure, let me tell you one thing. Everybody that holds office in Uganda on these matters, they are on pressure. They have not been sleeping. I can tell you. You may doubt me, but it's good. I mean, people must begin being accountable. Yeah.
Charles Rwomushana.
The separation of powers, if you could allow me to talk about it.
Very briefly, we'll talk about the president's speech.
Yeah.
And
I think there are some words that have been abused, don't misuse it. None of them is power. In my own view, power here is in the military. And
power is with the people.
It's in the military.
We have elections every 5 years.
You see, the parliament approves the appointment of IGP.
Yes.
I don't think it's ceremonial. It approves the appointment of judges.
Yes.
But the president announces that I'm restructuring, I'm appointing so and so as commander of special forces group. He forms it and appoints, but that one you don't approve.
You don't approve the army commander?
No.
Chief of Defense Forces?
Yeah, those ones you don't. And that is why there is the power. Then he changes from special forces group, special forces command. You don't ask why. You don't even go into the definition of those terms, and there is somebody who. But then,
I claim so.
So where is power? So I want to think that what you have is separation of roles, but the power is in the hands of the president. So there is one power, center of power. The rest you can count on the table. Like you had, there was this prayer. You saw it in State House.
Yes.
In the prayer.
Yes.
We are praying for
end of year
Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Didn't you see them seated? Yeah, you come. But when it comes to power is only in one center, the president. You can say it belongs to the people, but they must exercise it in such a way. They are given limitations. But here, you bring the gas, you get your gas. And on the economy,
just picking up already. 5.2%.
That's right.
The first 3 quarters.
That's right. Where you are spending 10,000 shillings in transport, now you spend 20. 2, if you go in up country, most of the feeder roads have crashed. I can tell you, Kunjiri district is not now connected to Kanungu. They can't even repair that bridge. And so if you are talking about the economy, you are talking about these figures, you are talking about your type. You are not talking about the real base of the economy and the peasantry, where there is production, where there are and you need the activity which is there in tax collection. It's very low.
Asuman Basalirwa, what's your reading? Where's here could see?
Well, I want to begin from the separation.
Very briefly, then we'll move to the 20.
Yes. First of all, the apparent friction or paralysis between the executive and the legislature is normal in a democracy. Yes. Absolutely normal.
We heard about the fiscal cliff.
Fiscal cliff. Obama had to leave Honolulu to rush to Washington to deal with the situation. So I think that is normal. The question we should be asking is, when there is paralysis of that nature, how do you deal with it? In other situations, you could talk about political mechanisms. If I were the president and I didn't want the house to be recalled, if I were the president,
yes,
and Charles and Lydia here are very close to him, maybe they meet him frequently. The president, I last met him in 2000.
I would have told him, ask for an appointment.
I would have told him to engage these lead petitioners as one of the political ways of dealing with this situation. Maybe the president has information why parliament should not convene, which the petitioners don't have. So I think it's really very important for us to build both legal, political, and moral institutions that deal with the standoff of this nature.
Okay.
Finally, the president said that the NRM does not kill unarmed people. That was the statement of idiots and fools. I want to inform you and the listeners. 2 years ago, my brother was picked in broad daylight and killed by police.
That means then he was armed.
I am telling you, General Fenya.
Yes.
He was killed. They picked him from Bujiri. Driven from Bujiri to Jinja, they had already tortured him to death. Okay? And they threw the body in the mortuary. I was in Mbale, they called me, I picked the body, I carried out a post-mortem, he had been tortured to death. I came and met Kaihura. This is General Kaihura here.
The IGP.
The IGP. He said, Basalirwa, you're doing politics, we are going to exhume the body. We went, the body was exhumed. They did a post-mortem. Up to now, they have never informed us the results of the post-mortem. So I want the president to know as the guy that actually police or this government kills unarmed people.
We have to go
they have never explained.
Yes.
I want you to host Kaibra here. Okay?
Yes.
And we discuss that issue. And there are very many Ugandans, by the way, who are being killed. I wanted to go to court about it. My family said, you will also go.
Okay. Thank you very much indeed.
Unarmed people are killed.
Honorable Lydia Wanyoto, two-time Ugandan representative at the South African Parliament. Thank you for coming. Spectrum tonight, Mr. Asuman Basalirwa, President of the Justice Forum Party, Mr. Charles Rwomushana, former head of political intelligence at State House, and Mr. Nichols Opiyo, legal consultant at AKIJUL, also Pundit on political and social affairs. Thank you for tuning in. I've been your host, Edmond. So Spectrum will be back on Monday. Have a very good first weekend of 2013.
Ça va, hello. My name is Kogole and